Hi, it's Biddy Penny, and I'm here today with 5 cards, 1 kit inspired by Canva. So this is the inspiration for my first card, and it was so perfect because the Spellbinders kit had that grid paper in the right color, the cardstock in the right color. So all 5 cards today are going to be Slimline, and I took direct inspiration from Canva on these. Now, obviously, I couldn't make them exactly the same because sometimes our inspiration source doesn't translate 100% to cards. And if you're a card maker, you know what I'm talking about. So here I stamped the key, the solid key piece on the pattern paper because that's what I wanted, and I wanted the little bird on it. So this first card sticks pretty close to its inspiration. The color palette is the same, even that grid paper, the dark circle, being the focal point, and then the writing on the left. Like, I pretty much stuck right to it. So the other thing I did was I stamped the keys on metallic cardstock, and I did like a rose gold and a silver, and I did 2 because this is a friend's card. So yeah, we need at least 2 keys. Of course there could be 4, right? So then I also stamped even that little key ring part on metallic cardstock and cut it out. So here I am. This card was pretty quick and simple. Now, the only difficulty I had with this card was actually the sentiment. So I really wanted to use the sentiment from the stamp set, and I wanted it gold embossed, and I thought it was just going to be great, but it didn't emboss well, and that's because the font is incredibly fine and small. It's beautiful. I love the sentiment. Good friends are the key to happiness. Excellent friend card. Here I use my brand new Slimline dies from Pink and Maine to make my own thin frame. So here I'm showing you the difference between it stamped and embossed. And so I really wanting to hold on to that embossed side. And so I actually end up covering up the stamp. I keep the emboss a little bit longer, thinking I'm going to be able to make it work. But what I realize is, I know what it says because I know what it says. I use the stamp set. But if I send it to a friend, it may be really difficult for them to read it, and I don't want that. Anyways, for now, I'm sticking down this craft card frame that I had made with my dies. And I did pretty much really stick to the card kit here. I really wanted to use what was in it mostly, in case you have it and you want to take inspiration from this video and make something. And the only thing I added was 1 sheet of craft cardstock, and then the dies from my frame, and maybe something here or there, but very little. So I go ahead and adhere this down onto my Slimline card base, and at this point I accept the fact that that sentiment's not going to work. So I just stamped it on white cardstock, and then I'm going to cut it out into thin strips. Okay, and I glued that down, and then I did bring in some of these cat scrappiness gems. This kit came with pink sequins, and they would have been lovely, but I was really trying to stick to like a minimalist feel, and I like these little clear baubles. So here is the final card. Here's card number 2, inspiration. And now what I'm doing is taking my ruler to my card base and just getting an idea of the measurements that I need. The other thing I did was I laid out my paper there to get an idea if I really did like it. So I did. I know that the colors on this card are kind of wild, like what I chose. But for me, I think it works. I chose 2 black and white patterns, and then I chose 2 patterns that had gold foiling detail on them with small icons. So the planes and the cameras. When you're cutting something like this, you do want to definitely pay attention to orientation. Like, it would have been really weird if those planes had been going downward. That always bothers me. Or if your cameras were sideways or the words were sideways. So definitely on all these, the orientation of how I cut my paper definitely mattered. So I love stickers like this because, as you can see, I cut it with acetate still attached so that I can move these pieces around on my card front before I'm committed. So a little tip for you there, if your stickers come on an acetate page or you feel like cutting the page apart the way I've done here, it gives you more flexibility as you move them around the page. You could also take them off, stick them on acetate, maybe packaging or something if you wanted, but this is just what works for me. Okay, I scored this base to give it some embossing and extra detail. I made my score lines closer at the top and they got wider down at the bottom. Again, just a little added interest. Now I use my mat here to line up where I'm placing and creating my own grid. So I did it like 1/2 inch from each side and from the top. And this helped me line up my grid perfectly, at least perfectly enough, and get everything where I wanted it. I did pop up the Explorer with foam tape. And then the other stickers, these are all cardboard stickers, except for the 2 pieces of ephemera, I'm just going to add a little extra glue. I live in Texas. It's humid. You gotta. So that is pretty much it for this card. It's really quite simple, and I love that it's just so bold. It's good to be bold sometimes. So here's a close-up of this card. Here's inspiration for card number 3. Love it. And here's what I came up with. So for, obviously, the Spellbinders kits come with 6x6 paper pads. Don't let that throw you when it comes to creating slimline cards. There's a lot of videos on my channel where I create slimline cards with 6x6 paper. I create slimline cards with A2 supplies all the time. In fact, I just recently got my very first slimline dies and stuff. So really there's just so much you can do. So I picked a really bold pattern paper so that when I merged it together there in the middle at that seam, you can't even tell at all that it's actually 2 pieces of paper. Okay, so here's kind of my centerpiece, and then I'm going to take the ephemera and I'm going to build my bouquet here on the centerpiece, just like my inspiration. So in case you don't know what Canva is, Canva is an amazing website. So I know all my YouTube friends probably know what it is. And honestly, if you don't use YouTube, Canva is probably more in your life than you realize. People make amazing printables on it, banners for Etsy, Instagram, YouTube. So you're seeing Canva and you just might not realize it. It's free. It's amazing. I love it. And I love to pull inspiration from my life. So it keeps things always moving. So when I'm looking for inspiration, I look around me, and it was like a snake in the grass why I hadn't used this yet. But hey, it fit perfect with this kit. This kit screamed Canva to me, so they were a match made in heaven. So here we are. I'm finally going to actually lay down a little bit of the cardstock from the kit here. This is going to be a background for my focal point, and I'm going to bring in that sentiment again. I really did love it, and on this card it was perfect. My inspiration piece from Canva had some writing up at the top, and this was just small enough and fine enough to be perfect up there. So now I can glue down my centerpiece, and then I'm going to bring in one of these amazing butterfly stickers. Be careful peeling these off if you have them. They are like a foil sticker at the bottom. You can rip it. I didn't, but I know that it's possible. So I put the yellow in there because it's my pop of color for this card, and I think it just sets it off. And I love this card. It might be my favorite. Here's a close-up. Inspiration for card number 4. Now, card number 4 is a ton of fun. There is one thing I would do differently. So if you think about making this card yourself, consider doing some ink blending. I wish I would have ink blended dark at the bottom, gradient up just halfway to the middle of the card, and left it. I know it's like by the time we get to the end of this and you see the final card, you're going to be like, yeah, but you'd be covering a lot of that up. However, I know it would make a difference. So that's the only thing I wish I would have done differently. And maybe you can try it, and maybe I will too. But I still love this card. So this was so much fun. The Spellbinders kits come with a ton of ephemera, plus you usually get 2 of each piece. So I basically tried to almost use 1 of each piece, right? At least the ones that made sense. So my inspiration piece was a skyline, and it was full, and it was kind of dark and interesting, and I wanted to kind of create that here. So but this is like a traveling collage, if you will, of all the ephemera. So basically just go through, and I'm building everything up, layering it until I get to a point where I feel like, okay, Toby, you're done. And in order to keep all this together, of course, you can take a picture with your phone and try to piece things back, or you can use the Jennifer McGuire technique, which is press and seal. So here comes the press and seal, because she would never steer us wrong, ladies. All right, so, and gentlemen, here I am. Now, I really should have paid more attention to how to have everything lined up. By the time I had gotten to this point, you know, you touch 50 different pieces of ephemera on a card front and they move and they shift. And so it wasn't exactly where I wanted it, but I used liquid glue. Now here I'm using my mat, and see how I'm lining that up. Please use your mat. I use my mat all the time. Like if you're crafting on one, just make sure you're always using it to keep things straight. So that helped me get everything lined up there at the edge. And then I'm just going in, and all the top pieces, I'm popping some up or gluing others on and getting things exactly where I want them. I had popped up the Eiffel Tower there, so I also needed to pop up this little Paris sign that goes on top of it. So this card is just so much fun, I think. It'd be great to give to a friend who's maybe going to Europe. I wish I was going to Europe. But that's okay. My son and I have been like virtually traveling thanks to fantastic videos on YouTube. During quarantine, we just still want to get away. Maybe more now than ever, right? So then I finished this off with these 2 cardstock stickers up in the corner, which just make me think of being in an airport and trying to find my terminal. And I love the way it came out. Of course, you could do more to this card, but this is where I landed with mine. Okay, so card number 5. This, I love that dog. It reminds me of my brother and sister-in-law's dog, and she's so precious. So this card was lots of fun. I'm finally going to use the die cuts, which the die cuts to me for this card kit were the standout. I always enjoy acquiring things that I don't have, and this with the globe, it was a must, right? Like, honestly, I skip some months. I don't just take every kit. But this one I was super excited about. So, and it was the dies that had sold me on this kit. Sometimes it's the ephemera, the paper, sometimes it's the dies, sometimes it's everything. Anyways, so I really like the way this one came together. Now the inspiration photo, the pieces were a little more like abstract and everything, and I chose to do these more rectangular shapes rather than, I don't know, the others look like amoebas or something, but whatever. But I liked the clean lines of this. I feel like this card could really kind of go to anyone, you know. It's just very clean and modern and, to me, beautiful. Now, one thing I'm going to do here is bring in more scraps, and they happen to just line up perfectly, lucky me. And this is so that the pattern paper is even all the way across. This pattern paper is somewhat thin, like copy paper. So I wanted to make sure that it had a level playing ground there. And I am just going to use my tape runner and get that adhered down. This card's kind of fun because it's going to pop once I cut off all the excess around it. So of course I had to put my plane, he's flying upward, right? I can't stand it when I see things with planes flying downwards. It just bothers me. So then I pop up my sentiment journey, and then I bring in 2 chipboard stickers here. And I am going to trim off all the excess pieces, and this is when you really get to see the beauty of this card. I am so excited about these. I hope you are too. Please let me know which ones are your favorites. And go check out Canva. It's a free website. You could always browse around there for inspiration. All right, thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, leave me a comment, and I hope you have a beautiful and creative day. Bye.